It's tempting to plug your home's value into a calculator just to see how much cash you can extract. But treating these tools like an ATM receipt is a dangerous financial mistake. The traditional approach is to go straight to a lender and ask for the absolute maximum amount you qualify to borrow. If you maximize your cash payout upfront, you strip your property of its equity safety net. You leave yourself zero cushion if the market turns. The actual purpose of an equity calculator is to help you find a specific mathematical threshold, the exact point where the utility of the cash you receive outweighs the heavy drag of decades of interest payments. You have to use this tool as your personal risk management engine. Run your own stress tests before you ever let a lender pull your credit. Before you type a single number into a calculator, you need to stress test your equity by categorizing what you actually need the money for. This chart maps the return on your investment against the risk to your asset. If you are funding permanent home renovations, you are in the high ROI, moderate risk quadrant. This is generally an acceptable use of leverage because you are adding value back into the property. On the opposite end, using your house to fund a luxury vacation or support lifestyle creep lands you in the negative ROI, high-risk zone. You are actively destroying your housing wealth for a temporary payout. Debt consolidation sits in the moderate ROI, high-risk category. It lowers your monthly payments, but it is extremely dangerous if your core spending habits don't permanently change. Your central dilemma is finding a loan structure that gives you the necessary capital without triggering a decade of suffocating interest payments. Solving this requires testing 3 specific calculator variables: your loan-to-value limits, your repayment terms, and your closing costs. Your combined loan-to-value, or CLTV, is the ultimate ceiling on your borrowing power. Lenders calculate your current mortgage plus your new loan, and they typically enforce a hard cap at 80 to 85% of your home's total value. If you push your calculator inputs to that absolute 85% limit, you will unlock the highest possible lump sum of cash. But lenders view borrowers at the maximum limit as a higher risk. They will penalize that aggressive. If real estate prices decline slightly, your property value drops below what you owe. You are now trapped, unable to sell or refinance without bringing cash to the table. Running a conservative calculator scenario, capping your borrowing at 60% LTV explicitly protects you against these market dips. Regardless of lender approvals, preserving an equity buffer of at least 20% is a mandatory rule for your long-term financial survival. Next, you have to watch out for the term trap. Lenders market 20 or 30-year home equity loans by advertising incredibly low monthly payments. The mathematical reality is straightforward. While your monthly cash output drops, the total lifetime interest you pay to the bank skyrockets. This line graph shows a 30-year amortization schedule. Early on, your payments go almost entirely toward bank interest.
But select a shorter 10-year term, and interest shrinks drastically, restoring your equity at an accelerated rate from year 1. The trade-off is strict. Minimizing your total interest requires you to lock into a rigid, much higher monthly payment. An overly high monthly payment severely reduces your month-to-month cash flow flexibility. If a sudden emergency occurs, that heavy payment creates immediate budget strain. You have to run multiple scenarios. Keep adjusting the term length in the calculator until you find the exact balance between daily affordability and the preservation of your overall wealth. The final hidden variable the calculator exposes is the upfront friction of lender closing costs, which typically run between 2 and 5% of your total loan. A common tactic is to roll these closing fees directly into the requested loan amount so you avoid paying out of pocket at the closing table. Financing those closing costs means you are now paying decades of compound interest on the fees themselves. This matrix lays out 3 stress tests side by side: conservative, moderate, and aggressive. Look at the massive delta in the bottom row. Moving to the aggressive framework multiplies your total interest costs exponentially. An optimized borrowing scenario requires intentionally choosing the highest monthly payment you can safely afford, completely avoiding the lure of stretched-out terms. Before you finalize your numbers, you have to decide between a fixed home equity loan and a variable home equity line of credit. This flowchart breaks down the decision. If you have a one-time large lump sum expense and need a predictable budget, you want a fixed home equity loan. If you are managing an ongoing project with uncertain costs, you need flexible drawing, which means a HELOC.
Using the wrong calculator for your specific expense timeline will give you dangerously inaccurate budget projections, particularly when it comes to variable rate changes. Perfectly matching the loan structure to the timeline of your expense is the critical final step before trusting any calculator output. If you are a strategic upgrader looking to fund home renovations, your calculator inputs need to reflect the physical reality of the project. You must align your loan term with the actual lifespan of the upgrade. You do not want a 30-year payment schedule for a kitchen remodel that will be completely outdated in 15 years. If you are a debt consolidator using equity to escape high-interest credit cards, the calculator will show you an attractive, much lower monthly payment. But understand the trade-off. By paying off those credit cards with home equity, you legally convert unsecured debt into secured debt. You are putting your actual home at risk of foreclosure if you miss a payment. If you are a safety net seeker, use the calculator today to define exactly where your 80% LTV threshold sits. Then, leave that equity completely untouched until a genuine medical or repair emergency occurs. The most important metric on any home equity calculator is never the available equity sitting at the top of the screen. It is always the total interest trap waiting at the bottom.